when talking about younger people today, I feel like there's this big argument that young people should pick themselves up, get out into the world, and just make things work. And you know what? There actually is a lot of power to that message. But I think the reality is, a lot of older people don't really understand the modern world that a lot of young people are in. If you're my age, you may relate to this message, but especially if you're older, I want to share a bit of an insight into the way that a lot of young people are living, and some of these issues go a lot deeper than just work, money, and the cost of living crisis. You know, I was having a really interesting chat with somebody the other day about modern life and how life is going to be different for our generation, and especially for the younger generation than ours growing up. I mean, think about one thing alone: the mobile phone and the internet, and the mass adoption of both of these things. Not only do we have the ability to connect, to anywhere, anyone in the world at any point, we now can do it from the comfort of our pockets, anywhere we go. And I feel like this is the first generation, probably in history, that has had the ability to live a life of interacting with nobody and still get on, or interacting with very few people. I mean, just think about this as a depressing dystopian day, but this is a reality that many people can face. The fact that you can work at home, which is in a way great, but if you've got no friends or family that you live with, how good is that really? So you work at home, you don't see anybody. You obviously live at home. You can get your food delivered at home, and you can get all your entertainment either on the TV or on your phone at home. You don't need to see anybody in this world, and that is in itself a worrying trend. But one thing that you see nowadays is, because of this and because of the level of social isolation that a lot of people are in, or the way that the society is headed on that front, where are the opportunities to even meet people? And I feel like nowadays this is starting to take a bit of a backlash, in the sense that people are getting out there into the world a lot more. A lot of people are realising, especially a lot of young people, that this internet path that we're going on, this path of complete isolation, is not one that's going to end well for any of us. But think about it really. So imagine that you're my age, 21, man or woman, but I'm a man, so I'm going to use myself as an example. You're a 21-year-old man. How do you even go about making new friends and connections in this modern world? Well, think about it. Dating options, people say use dating apps, but I've explained in the past why I don't think that they work very well. And in terms of meeting people, well, people don't socialise like that anymore. And especially if you're starting from the base position of having no friends, then that's even worse. Fortunately for me, I have a couple of friends. I have quite a few friends actually. And I'm sure you guys know if you have friends too. It becomes a lot easier to talk to that girl or have a laugh with them that other group of guys when you've got a group of your friends, or even another friend with you, just one other person. It becomes a lot easier and a lot more relaxed. It completely changes the tone. Even if you've got one close, strong friend who you like that with, that's really, really powerful. When people don't have that, how do you even go about making friends? How do you even go about making friends? Well, you might join a club, you might join a society or a group, you might join the gym. But that's just one example. People don't interact and make connections really unless they're in a group of perhaps like-minded people who are forced to by the desire to make friends, and of course join an activity at the same time. Now, of course, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Your friends will be a lot more targeted, and modern day problems require modern day solutions, but that is the reality of it. And again, you get into dating prospects and potentially things get even worse for a lot of guys. We've already explained this before, right? How dating apps have changed the dating world. We've already explained how the job sites have changed the job market world. And actually, even though it's dating and jobs, not necessarily the same thing at all, they have the same impact because they show the potential match, i.e. the job or the girl, let's say, the best candidate. The best candidate, because there's no place in the real world, really, even in a nightclub, there's no place where you will be paired and in competition directly with another guy. Not explicitly, right? Whereas come onto a dating app, there's a whole list of guys that you're in competition with. And the same goes into the world of work. Think about that, right? So what do we have? We have a world where a lot of employers can choose the best candidate, which in theory is great, but it means that a lot of average people do not get those jobs anymore, right? And a lot of those jobs are increasingly unstable as technology continues to develop. Things like AI. Now, we can talk about the creation of new jobs from AI, but You know, in the modern world, things change a lot faster than people realise. And I know this has been the case since the Industrial Revolution, right? We've gone from from being farming people to being whatever we all do now. Office administrator, right? What happened in 100 years? And I'm not saying that that's worse. It's a lot more of a comfortable life. That's a good thing. At the same time, though, what I am trying to say is this is a pace of change, and it's actually speeding up, if you think about it. The stuff that we learn in university is basically irrelevant information. If you go back to the 1950s and 60s, where everything was done on paper, or studies like that, a study from the 1960s in today's market is basically irrelevant. Unless we're looking at it as historical data, it holds no significance in the modern world at all. And again, I don't want to make this all about work or money. I know a lot of people in the comment section say, well, there's good jobs out there if you want to get them. Yeah, there is. I'm not going to even deny that. There's cheap housing if you want it, if you're willing to make compromises. There's good jobs if you want them, and you're willing to make compromises, and you're willing to work hard. But some of these things run deeper than that. That isolation which people hold themselves in on... Have you ever been on a bus recently? Fortunately for me, I have a car, so I don't really take the bus. But I was on the bus the other day. Everybody on the bus not only is on their phone, but the amount of people who are playing TikTok out loud. And people might say this is a small thing. This is huge. We're on a bus, right? I'm not saying it like I'm amazing. It's not one of those videos at all. I don't care. But I'm looking out the window. I'm interacting with my environment. Everyone's glued to their phone. And so many... Have you ever been in a classroom or work, right? When no one's around, apart from your colleagues or something, everyone's on their phone. Striking up a conversation is like a it's a no-go. And that many people have social anxiety and issues like that. That's just another story, right? The point I'm trying to make here is not one that we have it harder, not one that there's big issues in society that we've never seen before, but one of the fact that we're in an interesting place in the world. We always have been, we always will be, because that's just human evolution, but at the same time, we don't talk about this enough. And I think a lot of the older generations don't realise a good job is not going to be enough to inspire a lot of these people, because they don't have a family, they don't have a wife and kids, or a husband. So, where's your inspiration? Who are you working for? Who are you actually working for? Right? A lot of these guys, specifically, have never had a girlfriend. So they don't even have an understanding of how this stuff works. So what are you actually working towards? Right? Take all the money out of it, because you guys will know, I've been a comparatively, for myself at least, rich man, and I've been a comparatively, for myself at least, poor man. Now, some people will say at my richest I was broke, some people will say at my brokest I was rich. It just depends on your world perspective. At the same time, that's how I see it. The materialistic goods don't do that much. Travel is great, but it's a lot nicer travelling with a girlfriend or a friend, or a couple of friends. You don't do this stuff by yourself. But when we live in such an isolated world, which kind of forces people alone, or keeps people alone, and it's increasingly hard to make meaningful connections, and build relationships, take the job out of it. What does it even mean? And this is not necessarily my position. Some people say, well, if you think that, I'm not saying I think that. My life doesn't really look like that. At the same time, though, I can look at this with an objective view. And when we look at the way it is, the technology, the isolation, the jobs market to a degree, so many people feel just beat down, right? And I don't think money would change that alone. I think it runs a lot deeper than that, to be honest. And we don't talk about this enough. There are ways to meet people. There are ways to make friends. And there are still a lot of good social people out there. Let's not lie. But an increasing number of people don't experience this. An increasing number of people face these challenges, these fears, this isolation. And older people don't necessarily understand it. The amount of times that you hear from older people, go talk to a girl at the bar. Have you ever done that? In this generation, to use that phrase, not the same experience at all. Right? Comparatively from what you hear. And this is just one of the examples that people can use to have a look at how the world is different. Anyway, we could go on for ages on this topic. I just found it to be a really interesting thing. I don't think enough people realise how different times are now to how they have been in the past. And when we start to actually acknowledge this on a deeper level, we see a world that's just completely different. And again, without acknowledging this, with just brushing this under the carpet, we can never really realise or acknowledge what we're living in and make the changes that we need. Like I say, modern times require modern solutions. Doing things the old ways in a lot of these scenarios wouldn't work. It doesn't mean that we're finished, it doesn't mean that we're done, but so many people don't even understand the perspective of a lot of young people that say it's just about work or it's much deeper than that. And I just wanted to bring a bit of attention to that and a bit of insight to people who may not fully understand.